A growth mindset will help you take ownership of your life, but it does require that you shift your perspective. If you often feel like everything's out of your control or that life just happens to you, you may be stuck with a limited mindset, and that is preventing you from reaching your full potential overall. To develop a growth mindset, there are a few key things that I would recommend that you change today to start working on developing this skill set. So, keeping everything simple, let's jump right in. Welcome back to the Keeping Everything Simple podcast. I'm your host and fellow learner, Michael Klucas, and on this show, we boil down complex topics into simple, actionable tips. The first recommendation that I have in developing a growth mindset is asking yourself why this is important to you overall. And I mean really asking why. Because as humans, we inherently like what we're good at, and it can be difficult for us to want to dive into something that we don't feel as confident in or that we don't feel as secure in because it's uncomfortable. And again, if it's not something that we're already good at, we're going to have a much harder time sticking to it and making the changes needed to really get good at the thing that's important to us. And if that's not hard enough already, the fact that changing our minds can be just as hard. When we're able to change that perspective of how we're looking at situations, change how we're looking at problems and seeing them instead as opportunities or some manner of adjusting the positive versus negative bias that we experience, that in itself is going to be also super challenging, but super helpful in clarifying the why behind the reason for wanting to grow and to evolve further. And the reason I emphasize asking yourself why as the first piece of advice to developing a growth mindset is because if you are able to understand why it's important to you, you're able to understand what that motivation and reasoning behind it is, then the days that it doesn't feel easy, the days that you may not actually enjoy what you're doing because that will happen at some point or another, or there's going to be pieces that you like less than others. This will allow you to understand and remember, okay, this is why I'm doing this. This is why this matters to me. I need to stick to it, and I will stick to it because I want to make this happen. So get super clear on the why and remind yourself constantly of why this is important to you, that you are developing this growth mindset and how it's going to positively impact your life. The next piece of the puzzle here is taking ownership of everything. Now, I want to clarify this one a little bit further because I've said it in the past and I think it requires a little bit of a kind of like warning label on it. When I say accepting ownership of everything, this does not mean, I repeat, it does not mean that you are taking the blame for everything. It doesn't mean you are taking the blame for someone else's problems or you are trying to find fault in yourself for everything that's happening. It means instead that you are accepting that all of your actions have an equal reaction. So the simple law of cause and effect, something that you do will cause an effect somewhere else. Because taking ownership of your actions themselves helps you, again, gain control of your overall life and your overall perspective. And at the same time, allows you to make it easier to take ownership of your thoughts and of your emotions and of your mind. Because your mind shapes your reality and your actions further impact those realities around you, or your reality and the reality of those around you. Because if you are able to own up to what you do and how you do it, then it's easier to say, okay, I see what I did here in this situation, in this problem, what I could have done better, how I could have done better, and here's what I'll do next time, versus someone that goes through and says, all right, well, that happened. On to the next situation, and they don't take a moment to reflect on it and really see what the overall impact is, what's the secondary impact, what's the third level impact, and are able to address those in a more constructive manner. Because that individual that just thinks they're going to go from one situation to the next is also likely someone that's thinking life just happens to them. They don't direct and control their life instead. And once you take ownership of your thoughts and of your actions, you'll begin to realize that you are actually in control of much more than you think. You're in control of a lot more ways to generate positive change in your life and with those around you, because you're no longer just reacting to everything. You're no longer feeling like you're just pulled along by this ship that we call life, and you're actually able to navigate, direct, set a course, and stick to it, because instead of, again, these situations or problems that will arise at some point in your life, whatever they might be, whether that is a family emergency, whether that is a work emergency, maybe you had actually an unexpected win that you don't know what to do with. That happens at times. Instead, it is owning the actions and the thoughts, because you don't want to just fall victim to life happens and life only ever happens. I never am able to chart the course and set the path myself. After that, you want to further dive into challenges and opportunities. So these all kind of just build on top of each other. So you want to understand the why it's important. You want to then go into the ownership of everything, all your thoughts and all your actions, and then moving towards challenges and opportunities and reframing how you are approaching them, because it means, again, a little something different to everybody. Obviously, I like using working out as an analogy, so we're going to go with that one. So to grow muscle, essentially what you are doing is you are destroying your muscle fibers by pushing them to failure. And then from there, through proper rest, through proper nutrition, the muscles repair themselves and grow back bigger and stronger than before. And that tends to be what challenges are doing to us in different ways. So a professional challenge that you may have to come up to some source of conflict, or you may have to go through a conversation with your boss or a tough conversation with a coworker, you are stretching that muscle of communication and that muscle of conflict resolution and de-escalation, and you are pushing them because, again, no one likes having to be called into the office and be like, hey, we need to talk. And instead, if you're looking at it as an opportunity to be like, hey, this is what I definitely could have done better and how I can do better in the future, you are taking that challenge, that situation, that problem, and turning it into an opportunity instead. And if you train your mind to view these challenges as opportunities, this will help you transition into that growth mindset more over time, because you will instead be focusing on the not what did I do wrong, instead focus on the what can I do to improve? What can I do next time? What can I do right now? Because if you only focus on how overwhelming a challenge feels, how overwhelming a situation feels, you're not going to be able to fully embrace the fact that you are able to overcome it. You are able to truly make the change that you want to see. And instead, you'll focus on the small technical pieces of the situation of like, actually, this is what needs to get done, but there's too many steps and it feels too overwhelming and it feels like you won't get it all done, etc., etc., etc. So you have to make sure that when you are approached with a challenge, when you feel like you are entering into a new phase or a new chapter, that you are looking at it as an opportunity rather than something to be afraid of, something to be wary of, because so much of the growth mindset just means not limiting yourself to what you already know, but instead taking off those limiters, so that way when opportunities present themselves, you are prepared, that you feel ready, because you know that you can stretch the various muscles of your mind, stretch the various muscles of your skills, and grow them further and faster. Another piece of the puzzle in developing your growth mindset is you really have to master self-talk. Now, this always sounds a little bit odd, but the reason it sounds odd is because for most people that don't do affirmations or have some type of routine around affirming themselves, then it can seem a little, woo-woo. And I don't really like using the word woo-woo. But anyways, it can seem a little odd for someone to say, all right, every morning I'm going to remind myself of like 3 key things. One, that I am capable. One, that challenges before me are meant to be overcome. And that 3, I am able to grow beyond where I am today. It's like having these kind of 3 affirmations or whatever variation you want to have can influence, again, so much of what you do, because mind equals reality. If you are able to remind yourself, I am capable, challenges are opportunities, and I can grow and overcome this, then that means I'm able to do more. When I'm approached with a situation that can seem overwhelming at times, I still know that I can get through it with a good outcome, with good actions and good mindfulness. Because if you're constantly going through life and going through your days just telling yourself, I can't do this, I won't make it work, I don't know what to do, and I'm not the type of person that can overcome these problems, then you are setting yourself up, unfortunately, to fail, because you're right. You won't be able to do the things that you believe inherently you're incapable of. There might be points where you surprise yourself and you think, oh, wow, I was super stressed about having that coaching conversation with someone, or I was super stressed about the interview and I did it. Fantastic. But then the next time one comes up, you instantly revert back to where you were before. Like, wow, I don't want to do this. This is stressful. And I just don't think that I'm the right person to have this conversation or this opportunity. And that sets yourself up again for failure, because you have to master your ability to say, all right, I might be overwhelmed, but I can do this. I've done it in the past. I know what to say. I know what needs to be worked out, and I'm going to take the right steps to make that happen. Now, while I recommend affirmations and, kind of this morning affirmation, you don't have to necessarily go that route, but you do have to be able to catch yourself in the moments when you are talking down to yourself. And that can be using something as simple as picturing your kind of conversation or your self-talk as like your own internal child, the version of you that is 6 years old, because you don't want to tell a 6-year-old, hey, you can't do this. You can't, overcome this challenge. You can't apply for this or whatever. You can't apply yourself to this, whatever it is. Instead saying, hey, I know it seems overwhelming right now, but if you take these steps, you'll start moving forward and you'll make progress, and that's good. Or, hey, it might seem uncertain, and uncertainty never feels comfortable, but if you're able to overcome this, then you'll be able to grow further and power up and level up. So master your self-talk, so that way you're able to not limit yourself, but instead encourage yourself to do more. Another thing you also want to really develop throughout the course of changing into a growth mindset is the idea of control. Now, rather than touching on the locus of control again, I wanted to focus on the idea of what you do or don't control. Because if you feel like you have to control everything, then you yourself will actually be putting up barriers for your own progress, because you're feeling like you have to control each and every single route. When instead, if you're able to focus on directly the actions that create a positive effect or some progress, those are going to be the key things that you want to focus on, because those are things that are truly within your control. If I'm going to rely on, a team member to create some type of change, some type of progress, I have to have 100% confidence in my ability to motivate and inspire someone to say, hey, this is the vision, this is the mission, and I need you to help me execute it. The problem is, I'm not always able to control what a team member does, what someone else does. I can influence it, and for those that want to develop that skill further, that's great. However, if you are trying to develop a growth mindset, you have to understand what you can and can't control. if I use my podcast as an example here, I can't control if someone wants to leave me a bad comment or leave me a negative review or XYZ. I can't control that. What I can control is that I sit down and I record these episodes. I research them. I have fun with them. This is the stuff that I can control. So that way, at the end of the day, I put something out in the world that I think might help somebody, that might change the way someone looks at something, that I have taken the time to create. And that's the things that I can control. I can control I can control my input and my outputs, and then from there, I can't necessarily control what happens afterwards. If you're able to reframe how you're thinking about this, that will make it much easier for you to fall into that growth mindset mentality, because it won't be you limiting yourself to only what you can control start to finish, but instead limit yourself to what you can put in, and then encouraging the results that follow afterwards, and then taking that data, taking those responses, and figuring out how to refine your process. Because you don't want to just try to do the same thing over and over again. You want to change your approach. You want to update your approach, so that way you feel more and more confident that you are getting closer and closer to the right answer. So I don't want you to feel like the growth mindset is this switch to be flipped, because instead you want to focus on finding sustainable ways to alter your perspective, alter your worldview, and how you mentally engage with the things around you. By doing this, you will be able to take, again, more control over your actions and your thoughts and lead yourself towards a better outcome and a better future. A growth mindset isn't just something that is only available to a select few. It's something that if you are intentional about it, if you follow some simple tips, you will be able to make it happen and develop one for yourself. So again, ending it of what are the things that I recommend, asking yourself why, figuring out why it's important to you, taking ownership of your action and your thoughts, understand challenges and opportunities, controlling self-talk, and then changing how you view your inputs and your control. If you're watching this on YouTube, let me know down in the comments, how have you come across the idea of a growth mindset? And is it something that you personally identify with? Because again, it's not a secret skill only available to select few, but it is something that does take time and effort to develop. So let me know in the YouTube comments what your relationship with it is. And also on YouTube, make sure that you like and subscribe to the podcast. It helps the YouTube algorithm recommend the show to other people just like you. If you're listening to us on a podcast app of choice, make sure you leave us a rating. That also helps promote the show, and I appreciate it so, so much. Have an amazing day, you amazing people, and I will see you all in the next episode. Go out there and do great things.